Hello and welcome back. I am Tommy and I love to be outdoors with my backpack and my tent for a few days. And a lot of you have asked me how to find unique places to camp and how I plan my backpacking trips and my routes in general, and how to know if a hike fits my level of experience. And today I'm going to share with you my entire planning process from start to finish in detail. So let's get started, and please feel free to ask any questions down in the comment section. First of all, you need to find the perfect place or area for your hike, no matter if you want to hike locally or board an international plane. For me, a lot of inspiration comes from social media and YouTube. If you're looking for inspiration for hikes in the US, the YouTube channels from Cody and Victoria and Craig Adams are a super great starting points. Craig Adams also has got a lot of inspiration for the greatest hikes worldwide. And another source of inspiration for me when it comes to the greatest hikes on the planet is Harmon Höök. He just goes on the craziest adventures and his videos are just so inspiring. I am super lucky to spend a lot of time in Sweden and Norway, which is why I'm hiking in the mountains up here a lot, but I've also been hiking in Spain, in the Scottish Highlands and even in Japan. And the planning process is basically the same no matter where you intend to hike. I don't look for a specific trail, for example like the PCT in the US or the Kungsleden in Sweden, because these famous trails are too crowded for me and they always feel a bit like a highway. I instead look for a wild and remote area, the bigger the better, where I then later on plan my exact trail. 90% of the time I hike in national parks. National parks are often the wildest and most beautiful places left on our planet, and you can be certain to find good hiking trails there. There is always a lot of information that is easy to find regarding hiking and outdoor adventures in national parks. So it's always a good starting point to research for national parks in the area or country where you intend to hike. A super valuable source of information is also the local or the national site of the tourist organization. In Norway, for example, they've got the website ut.no, where you can find all trails in all national parks all over the country with distance, with difficulties and with recommended routes. And most of the time you can also find the rules and regulations for the specific area you intend to hike. And no matter where you go, please stick to the rules, because these rules are in place for a good reason, to protect our nature. One last thing I always do to get a feel of the area I intend to hike is I use Google Maps. And I drag this little yellow guy in the middle of my screen, and then all these blue dots appear, and these blue dots are all spots where people took photos of the area. And if you click on the spot, you get a 360-degree view of the surrounding where you intend to hike. And these views are super valuable to me, because these are not Instagram pictures that are shot to look great, and most of the time Instagram pictures look more epic than the actual location. These 360-degree views are just really raw and real, and they really give me a feel for the environment. Once I've found the destination, it's time for me to plan my exact route, and I use Gaia GPS for my route planning. It's a browser-based application, and it's also an app for my phone, so I can do the route planning all on my computer and then later on use Gaia GPS on my smartphone to navigate while on trail. In this example, I'm going to plan a 3-day hiking trip in the Rondane National Park in Norway. As I zoom into the area, all these trails and mountain peaks appear, and I really take my time to look at all the details, look at all the trails and look for interesting places, maybe peaks, maybe the highest peak of the area, maybe cool looking lakes, or maybe some spots that I already found in my earlier research. You can also have a look at the area in 3D, which is super helpful to get a feel for the area. In this case, for example, these 3 peaks that are connected via this ridgeline look super interesting to me, and the Ronslottet is the highest peak of Rondane Mountains, which I would love to climb. So this is a place I would definitely include into my route. Once I have decided which places I want to visit during my hike, the next step is to find a starting point. And for me, the starting point is a parking place, because I will arrive by car and then hike a loop and come back to my car. I always try to hike in loops because it just makes the traveling process so much easier for me. I can see that there are a few trails leading to this point on the road, which most of the time means that there is a parking place. And if we zoom in, we can see that this is true, which makes this the perfect starting point for me. And now in Gaia GPS, I click on route, which allows me to create a new route. And first of all, I will click on my parking place because this is my starting point, and then I will zoom out, move to the mountain peak I found earlier and click there, and then Gaia GPS will automatically create the shortest route from my parking place to this mountain peak. And because I don't want to hike back the exact same route, and I wanted to hike this ridgeline anyway, this way back looks perfect, and now I've got a perfect loop already. Once I have created my loop, I take my time to have another look at the surroundings, and for example here I can see that there is this super cool looking valley with all of these lakes, and I would love to hike there as well, so I will change my route from up here to down here. And now I have created my route, but how do I know if this route is doable for me within my 3-day hiking window? And this next step is super important. It sounds a bit complicated at the beginning, but actually it's pretty straightforward, and it helps you a lot to have a great hiking experience and to feel confident that you will be able to do the hike that you planned. First of all, you need to find out how long you want and can hike in one day. This number will be different for every person, and it will change according to your skill level, but an average hiking speed is around 4 kilometers per hour. And I'm an experienced hiker, so I feel confident to hike for 6 or 7 hours a day, not including breaks, which adds up to 24 to 28 kilometers per day on a flat trail with no elevation. You will never ever hike on a trail that is perfectly flat and has no elevation, and you have to convert the distance of your hike with elevation into this flat converted number to make hikes comparable and to know if a hike is too difficult or too easy for you. You will need 3 numbers that are super important and that you can all find in Gaia GPS. It's the actual distance of your hike, it's the vertical meters uphill or your ascent, and your vertical meters downhill or the descent. The vertical meters are super important because hiking uphill, especially with a heavy backpack, is way more exhausting than hiking on flat ground. And to take this in consideration, you just have to take your vertical meters uphill and multiply them by 10, and take your vertical meters downhill and multiply them by 5, and add these 2 numbers to the actual distance of your hike. The loop I planned here, for example, is 36 kilometers long, has 2,400 meters of ascent and 2,300 meters of descent, and 2,400 meters times 10 are 24 kilometers, 2,300 meters times 5 are 11.5 kilometers, plus the 36 kilometers of actual distance add up to 71.5 kilometers of converted distance. I want to be on the trail for 3 days. 71.5 divided by 3 results in 24 kilometers converted daily distance. I just showed you 1 minute ago that my converted daily distance is between 24 and 28 kilometers per day, which means I should be perfectly able to hike this loop in 3 days. If you're just starting out, I would begin with a lower daily distance of 15 to 18 kilometers per day. It's always better to have a hike plan that is too short rather than a hike that is too long. And I'm super sorry for this mathematics lesson. I know that it's not fun to convert kilometers and everything, but this principle will help you a lot to plan your routes and to be confident while on trail that you will be able to make it home in time. Another super important piece of information that can even be critical to your safety is the weather, and during your planning process you should look at the average climate of the area that you're intending to hike, and later on before you go on your hike and during your hike you should check the local weather forecast. To check the average climate you can use timeanddate.com. Just click on weather and then on climate and then search for your location. Now you can see the highest, lowest and average temperature for every month, and you can also see how much rain there is to be expected. For example, in Rondane in July, the average highest temp is 20 degrees centigrade and the lowest average temp is 10 degrees centigrade. This helps you a lot to plan your clothes and also your sleeping bag and your sleeping mat, for example. Just before my hike and during my hike, I always check the weather forecast on a local weather app. In Norway, for example, I look at an app that's called YR, and because there might not be cell service while you're in the mountains, I always take a screenshot of the latest weather forecast just before I leave my car at the parking place, and whenever there is cell connection on my hike, I check the weather again and take an updated screenshot so I always know what kind of weather might be coming. One last super valuable source of information that I want to show you is mountainforecast.com. On this site you can check the weather on the base of a mountain, on the middle of a mountain and on the peak of a mountain, because the forecast you get from your weather app most of the time are in the valley, and the weather in the mountains can be super different, especially on the peak where there's a lot of wind. Mountain forecast shows you the actual temperature, but it also shows you the wind chill, and the wind chill is basically a temperature that is calculated from the actual temperature and the wind. So it shows you how the temperature will actually feel, and this is the number that is most important for you, because yes, you will be out in the mountains feeling the cold and feeling the wind. You can't find every single mountain peak on Mountain Forecast, but just look at the nearest mountain to the region you want to hike and you will get a very good reference. Okay, that's all I have for today, and I'm super sorry that this video was a bit theoretical and with a lot of numbers involved, but I hope that you got something out of it and that you now feel more confident to plan your next hike. And please, if there is anything that you didn't understand, if there's anything that I didn't explain in a good way, please just ask me in the comment sections and I will try to help you as good as I can. If you found this video helpful, you would help me a lot with a thumbs up, and in my next video I will go into detail about food planning and what kind of food to bring on your hiking trips, and after that it will almost be time for my backcountry cross-country ski tour in Norway. So if you're into this kind of stuff, consider subscribing, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!